Aloha aina, and welcome to Voices of Truth, one-on-one with Hawaii's future, brought to you by the Koani Foundation. I'm Ehukekahu Cardwell, and here we are today in beautiful, gorgeous Nu'uanu Valley. And we have two very special guests on the show, none other than Leon Siu. Leon, aloha. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And Clarence Ching. Aloha. Good to have you on the show. We wanted to have you both on. Good. We wanted to have you both on because since the defeat of the Akaka bill in the U.S. Senate in June, so many people have asked us, what happened? How did they do it? What went down? Give us a blow-by-blow. So you know what? That's what we want to do on the show today. And we want to let our viewers know right off the bat that the whole thing started over a dinner in New York City one night, didn't it, Leon?
Right, it did. Somewhere around the middle of May, I believe it was.
Yes.
We were in New York City, and we were right after the viewing of Eddie Kamai's newest film at the Pacifica Film Festival.
Yes.
We went to dinner, and you explained to me that you and
Kaiopua.
Kaiopua
And David Ingham.
David Ingham had been to Washington, D.C., as you have done many times in campaign lobbying against the Akaka bill, and that things looked pretty grim, that looked like the Akaka bill was going to pass, that they had enough votes. And I was kind of poo-pooing it, saying, no, never way. They couldn't do it because I knew many of the conservative Republicans would not go for it. But then you explained to me there was a lot of vote trading going on, and it dawned on me that, yes, we were in great jeopardy because of this bill and that the fact that it could pass. So I went to Washington, D.C. right after New York and kind of looked up a few people and asked around, and I ended up in a caucus meeting in the Senate among conservative Republicans, and one of the questions raised there was, does anybody here know anything about this Akaka bill, because we're supposed to vote on it next week? And I raised my hand, and they asked me to share, and I did, and out of that came another series of meetings among conservative Republicans, and a strategy developed, and they asked if we could come back to Washington, D.C. on the week of the vote to assist in them lobbying against the vote.
Okay,
and
so
I said I would only come if I could bring an elder. And so that's how Clarence Ching got in there.
Wonderful. So I want to come back to something you said because it's really amazing. You said you went down to D.C. to check out the lay of the land, ended up in this meeting that a lot of very powerful senators and their staff were in. And believe it or not, one of them stood up and said, does anybody know anything about this Akaka bill?
Right.
Isn't that amazing that a bill would be put forth by the two senators from Hawaii, and they actually hid the reality about the bill so that nobody knew anything about the bill?
That's right. That's right.
And so you knew when you heard that immediately that people from Hawaii, Hawaiians had to go back to D.C. and educate the U.S. Senate about this bill before anybody took a vote on anything.
That's correct, because they had not heard directly from the Hawaiian people.
Great. So you and Ku got on a plane, a red eye here.
I came back here, rounded up Ku, and went back on the
Okay, so this was Sunday. This was the 4th or 5th of June. And you landed, it was a Saturday night, so you landed on a Sunday. So you were able to get some rest that day in the hotel.
We even went to Chinatown and had some food.
Good for you. Always do that. Because you both knew that when Monday morning rolled around, and that would have been June 6th, 5th, Monday, June 5th, that you had to hit the ground running.
Right.
So, what happened that day?
Well, in my previous meetings in Washington, D.C., as I said, there were some strategy meetings. So there was a team of conservative Republicans who got together, and they started doing all the groundwork for us. So when we got there and hit the ground running on June 5th, Monday, they had appointments lined up for us. They had people assigned to us to go with us so that we wouldn't get lost in the hallways, or so that we could have access right into the offices.
Into the offices of the various senators to educate them about how bad this bill was.
Just to give them another point of view.
Yeah, great, great. And so what was the message you gave them when you went in to see them?
Well, let me tell you this first, that the guy that was, quote, assigned to us was a great guy. He had experience in Washington working for different senators. He had been a lobbyist. he knew some of the staff people, fairly intimately. And he took us by the hand. We went. We followed him all over the place. Leon had put together a packet. They also had a packet. Among them were some not very good things about Mr. Akaka.
Who is they? Explain who they is. Who had a packet besides you guys?
I guess these conservatives.
Oh, they already had some information.
They had been gathering
Gotcha.
information. For instance, at that time, there was some news going around in the popular media about how ineffective Mr. Akaka was. That he hadn't really,
done his work.
Sent too many things through the Congress, except that for this one. This was the biggie. And so we went around and talked to the different staffs. In our going through the halls, we never did actually talk to a single senator.
No,
but we talked to a bunch of staff.
You don't want to, because the senators are not the PowerPoint. The chief of staff is.
Yes.
And that's who you sat down with.
And those are the people we talked to.
Exactly. They're the ones that inform the senator, educate the senator, and say, this is the way we should vote on this bill. Yes. Good.
So at some places it was like, well, the staff person is busy, but you can leave your materials here with me, and I will make sure that it gets to them. Other staff people, just the opposite. They were all ears. Sat down. Sometimes we'd talk for half an hour about the bill, the issues, all this kind of stuff. But underlying all of this was, do the Hawaiian people really want this bill, as they had been led to believe? And so one of our subjects we talked about, heavy, was that we were Hawaiians who lived in Hawaii, and we didn't like the bill. And then if they were especially interested, we told them why.
Well, good. A couple things I want to point out about what you said, Koo. One was that you sat down and talked with some staffers for half an hour. For those who have never been to the Hill in Washington, D.C. and attempted to go in and speak with somebody about something, that's extremely rare.
That's very good.
You're lucky, number one, if you get the time of day. Number two, if you can drop off information and they read it, you're very lucky. But to be able to sit down and talk with a staffer, chief of staff of a senator in the office for half an hour, that means they're really interested. The other ace you had in your back pocket, of course, is that, Koo, you're a former OHA trustee. So you were able to come in and say, as a former OHA trustee, I know what I'm talking about.
Well, actually, we couldn't use the term former. Because Koo, can you tell them what happened?
Actually, I believe sometime in May, I went to an OHA meeting of some sort in Waimea on Hawaii Island. And this friend of mine and I wanted to bring to their attention the plight of a trail that goes through the middle of this development. And so we went up and introduced ourselves, and then I said, well, okay, I'm a former trustee of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And Chairman Apoliona herself said, no, you are not a former trustee. You are a trustee, because once you are a trustee, you are always a trustee.
So the current sitting chairman of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, Haunani Apoliona, said, you ain't a former, you are a trustee. Words out of her mouth.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And so,
congratulations.
To be fair, I carried the title OHA trustee at Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Yes.
1986 to 1990.
Yeah, because that's what she wanted you to say.
That's what she said.
Yeah, very good. So Monday, June 5th.
And that had a lot of clout.
Oh, of
course.
course.
The fact that he was a trustee from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, saying exactly the opposite of what they've been hearing for the last 6 years from trustees from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Yeah. So Monday, June 5th, you went around and met with a lot of staffers in the various offices.
Right.
Okay, so that was Monday. Long day, exhausting day.
Right.
When you got back to the hotel room, you practically dropped into your beds and went to sleep. You were beat. Tuesday morning,
there's another list.
June 6th.
Of senators to visit. Senate offices to visit.
By the way, what happened was that in certain offices that we went to where the staff people were not available, these are put on a list, called back to the office. The office then tried to make an appointment, a hard appointment for the next day
a
a couple days later. And so there was all this follow-through stuff. So not only did we leave these materials there, we followed through with phone calls and subsequent visits.
Yeah, very good. So that means your day on Tuesday was even heavier, your appointment schedule.
Correct.
Yeah.
And much more focused even.
Yes, because you had the information from Monday, the previous day.
Right.
Yes.
And again, the think tank that supported us and actually helped to organize all this is really on it. They had not only the person who went with us, but they had several other staff members who would follow up right away. You know, they'd just be using their BlackBerries and all that and just get right back to the person who said that we could meet the next day, and they'd set it up.
Wow.
So it was really very, very efficiently done.
Wow. So how did the meetings go on Tuesday? Tell us about that.
Before that, let me interject.
Yeah.
Interject something that to me was a real eye-opener.
Oh, please tell us.
I was really surprised because we were allowed to work with one special staff.
Person.
That staff.
Oh, staff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There was a set of rooms that we were allowed to meet in anytime we wanted to. We got together there, we met each other there, and having this base of operations, we then could foray out to the different senators' offices.
Really? So let me see if I understand what you're saying, Ku. You're saying that there was a Senate office, one of the senators in the U.S. Senate allowed you guys
dedicated
to have
his staff and his office
his staff,
to our work.
resources, and office to your work.
Along with the think tank that had its staff. And people behind us.
That is huge.
Yes, it is.
That is incredible. That's incredible.
Even patent boss couldn't do that.
The lobbyists that OHA hired and paid over $500,000 to try to get this stupid bill passed. Okay, back to Tuesday. So you had this base of operation, you had these resources, you had the manpower. Obviously, these guys loved what you had to say.
They did, and like as we said before, most of them were surprised and then actually quite happy by what we had to say, because it never made sense to them. They couldn't figure out why this was happening and why it was so important.
The bill, you mean?
Yeah, the bill.
Yeah.
And why were the Hawaiians so behind this? And then when we showed up and said, the Hawaiians aren't behind this. This is just those, the guys at the trough.
And they went, oh,
Right.
now we get it.
And then so they'd ask, well, what's in it for them? And we say, follow the money.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
And of course, we know it wasn't just money. It was power also.
Sure.
And title and these types of things. But the senators immediately grasped the fault of the bill, which is that the Hawaiian people actually were not behind it, and secondly, that it was a power grab by a select few who are in politics.
One of the things that was most interesting is when we went and told them why they only had one side of the picture. And a lot of that was because of these hearings that were held in Washington, open only by invitation and only to those who were pro the bill. And so everything that had gone on, the whole legislative record, was tainted positively.
Yes.
And the word had been spreading, and we stopped it. We brought credibility to the process. We told them what had happened. They couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
now, what had happened also in Washington, D.C. was that the Office of Foreign Affairs, the governor, and the Attorney General from Hawaii all showed up on Tuesday.
So they flew to D.C. also.
Right. That's right.
Okay.
And they were
on
to
one
do
of their
last
many trips.
One of their many junkets, spending a lot of taxpayer money.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were there to lobby on Tuesday also. So, but we had preceded them by a day, so we already
got the
jump on that and got the message out that not to trust these guys because they've been. We didn't say it in that.
So set it up, you know.
Yeah, we set it up so that when they actually went around, there were already doubts among some of these senators. So we actually passed the governor in the hallway.
Yes.
On Tuesday.
Yes.
Only she was
on her cell phone.
She was on her cell phone and facing the wall, so she didn't see us. So we just walked on by and went to our appointments, and she
like
was
a bunch of little mice, you know.
Right. Sneaking around each other.
Right. It was really a stealth operation.
It was a cat and mouse game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they didn't know the mouse was there.
Yeah. Until it was too late.
Too late. Right.
And so when was that? Was that Wednesday?
Well, that was Wednesday.
And what happened?
On Wednesday, the think tank and the Senate offices set up a press conference for us. And by then, the Burgesses and the others who were arguing the constitutional issue had shown up. And so the Grassroots Institute people.
Yeah.
And so we had a joint press conference with them, which was actually headed by two senators whose names I can't remember right now.
Mm-hmm.
But they started out.
I believe one was from Tennessee and one was from Texas.
Okay. Yeah.
Could be.
And so they started out by giving presentations about the deficiencies of the Akaka bill and why they're not going to vote for it. By the way, the press conference, all the major press agencies on Capitol Hill were there, including the small presses that were. The Hill and the Capitol
Roll call and
I
all
don't know
those
how
other
small the Hill is, but
Yeah,
it's
right.
part of the major.
Those are
right.
those are
the
major press
right
houses.
there
Yeah.
in Washington D.C.
Yeah.
So
And there were also some staffers attending and whatnot.
correct.
Right?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And,
Very much so.
Yeah.
And there were also a couple of people from the supporters of the Akaka bill.
Yeah. They were sitting there in the audience.
They were in the audience.
Yeah.
And shocked.
Shocked.
Utterly shocked that we
They were
had been
throwing-
there and that we,
Talk about stink eye. I mean, stink eye. Wow.
So the press conference went really well. Got great coverage. I think parts of it was even shown here in Hawaii.
Yeah, and you stood up and you gave
Right.
a very
I
good
Leon
speech.
was our
thank you.
spokesperson.
Yeah, tell us what you said in a nutshell, because your message was right on the money.
Well, I basically said that this was a very offensive bill to Hawaiians because it mischaracterized us. It told the people there that we wanted to be exclusive, and our habit and our countenance and our way has always been inclusive.
Yes.
And I said that this is going to drive wedges into our families.
Mm-hmm.
We are intermarried with everybody else, and now we're going to be claiming, according to the Akaka bill, we would claim certain rights only to certain members of the family.
Yes.
And we would not do this as a people. So I said that this is particularly offensive to us as a people.
It's against the culture.
It's against the culture,
Yeah.
and it's against what has already transpired. I mean, we already are a blended society of many cultures, and we love one another no matter what blood quantum you have. And so I said, so this is a terrible mischaracterization of the Hawaiian people, and that we resented it very much. And so that, alongside with the other deficiencies of the bill, I think really came across.
Yeah, Leon, I got to say that from somebody like me who was not in D.C. at the time, but watching from the sidelines, I happen to know that your message really rang home with the people that heard it, both in that room and on TV and radio. I mean, it was a resounding message that struck, it really touched people's hearts, and it just had the ring of truth to it. Yes.
And what was interesting about it, the Hill, on the next day, on the front page, published a picture of the hearing, of the press conference.
Of you guys up there.
We're in Leon's right in front.
Oh, I haven't even seen it yet.
Well, that's great. Okay.
But we upstaged the Office of Foreign Affairs and the governor, all those who were having their hearing later that afternoon.
Yeah.
And we had everybody there, and bang, it was a shock to our opposition.
Yep.
that
And we
were
didn't have to pay a penny and got on the front page.
Isn't that great?
above grade.
Now, at what we're on Wednesday, which is the 7th, the day
Correct.
before the vote. The vote was taken the next day, Thursday, which we're going to get to in a second. But around 1:30 in the afternoon, East Coast time, Washington, D.C. time, something very significant happened. Another shoe dropped. Tell us what that was. What happened?
I'm not sure what you're driving at, but I think what you're talking about is
What statement came out from
the release from the White House.
Right, that's exactly right.
Because all this time, we knew from the people we were talking to that there was going to be something coming out of the White House. We didn't know quite when.
Yes.
And so we were poised for that. I don't think the opposition was.
They weren't ready for it.
And so the shoe fell.
And what was the statement?
Well, the statement was that the White House was not supporting the Akaka bill.
Yes.
And it was a pretty flat, done statement, it was a pretty strong statement.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what I thought you were alluding to was the statements that were being made here at Iolani Palace.
No. We're going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
But when the governor heard that statement
Yes.
from the White House, what did she and the Attorney General do?
She disappeared.
Where'd they go? They got on a plane, flew back home.
Yeah.
They knew game over.
It was over.
It was over. So meanwhile, now that's around 1:30 East Coast time. Hawaii is many, like 6 hours earlier. What was happening here in Hawaii at that time?
Well, at that time, Hui Pu had taken over the palace. Actually, they had gone up to the second floor
Of Iolani Palace, the Royal Palace.
and made their announcements there. And they stayed for a couple of hours, I believe it was, just for effect.
And they put out banners
They put out banners and all that. And
saying that
basically-
they were against the bill.
Yes. And the statement that was made by Andre Perez said that, Akaka, you don't speak for us. Inoue, you don't speak for us. Governor Lingle, you don't speak for us. Oha, you don't speak for us. We Hawaiians speak for ourselves.
Yes.
And that was basically the same message we were delivering on
Exactly.
Capitol Hill.
Because while they were saying that in Hawaii, you guys were speaking for
Right.
Hawaiians on the Hill
That's
at that
right.
very
And that
moment.
was a terrific
Fulfillment.
underlining of
Yes.
the statement we were making.
Yes.
From our perspective, we were telling our story, right? That there were Hawaiians
Yep.
from Hawaii who were against the bill, which was surprising already. And when these guys did that, and it hit the news, we said, you see,
Yeah.
those are some of the other guys who are back home. They didn't just send Leon and myself.
Yes.
We have other people there. We're
Yeah.
more than just one or two.
So it's like, here's the proof. You want proof? Here's the proof.
Confirmation.
Confirmation.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. Wonderful. So Wednesday was another just going 90 miles an hour day.
At the end of the day, I felt we had it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I left Thursday, Thursday morning. I was booked to leave Thursday morning. And I just said, okay.
You snuck out of town.
Right.
Actually, the strategy we had for Wednesday, because on Monday and Tuesday we had gone to the Republicans, to Republican, if you want to call it, swing voters,
Yeah.
people that were sort of on the fence.
On the fence.
That we could maybe, do some clarifications of issues, et cetera, whatever. We had gone through our list by Tuesday. So on Wednesday, or most of Wednesday, we concentrated on Democrat offices. And of course, you have the Democratic senators supporting other Democratic senators. But one of the things we found out was that there were senators there or Democratic senators, through their staff people, that did not want the bill.
Yes.
So, although on Thursday they voted for cloture and got the 56 votes, if the bill had ever gotten to the floor, there would have been Democrat negative votes.
Yes.
Right.
So
a bunch of them.
yes,
Very
a bunch
surprising.
of them. A whole bunch of them. So had the bill gotten to the floor, had the cloture vote succeeded, at that point, when the final vote for the bill came, a whole bunch of Democrats would have voted against the bill.
And practically all the Republicans
And all the
that
Republicans.
had committed to vote for
So what that means is, when OHA says to you, well, shucks, we would have had the votes to pass the bill, that ain't
That's
true.
not true.
Not
They
true.
weren't even close.
So
Not
despite
even
the
close.
56 votes for cloture,
Which even weren't enough.
which were not enough, if you assume that the 56 votes would have been for the bill on the floor, you would have been very, very surprised.
Right.
Because the vote would not have come out that way.
No.
And key Democratic senators, their staff told us that they weren't going to vote for the
Yes,
bill.
yes. All right, so now let's go to Thursday. You were on a plane
Yes.
going back home.
Right.
You were still in town.
I was still in town.
And you were in the gallery, in the Senate
But
gallery?
before that,
Yeah.
OHA had a press conference
Aha.
out on the lawn
a
in front of
rally.
the Capitol.
Ah,
or
that's
rally.
right. That's right. Thursday morning.
So you had the governor, you had the OHA trustees, a few other people there, and their supporters. Well, I hate to tell you, but it looked like a picnic, like a handful of people out there doing their thing with their sound system.
Nobody showed up.
I was sitting over 100 yards away, under cover, and observing this whole thing. Hardly anybody showed up. And so from that point on, people dissipated and all that, and finally ended up about an hour later in the gallery.
And you were sitting there when the vote was taken.
okay, to get to the gallery, first of all, you have to have a pass.
Right.
And it's really convenient if a staff person takes you over there. So staff person takes us in, we go up there, there's an usher, and they take you up into the gallery. So they take us up to this, there's this section, about 8 rows of seats. On the last 2 rows, there are the Oha people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, already the daggers are flying. So we, walk in like we belong there.
Which you do.
On the end of the aisle, there's ex-governor John Waihee. Hi, John. We take our seats. And then there are some speeches that are being made prior to the vote.
Right.
Senator Inouye, Senator Kaka, other people. It was mostly Democrats speaking for the bill, Republicans speaking against it. Sort of a, evenly spaced.
Long party lines.
Then they had the vote.
Yeah.
And it took about, I don't know, I guess 20 minutes or so for, between the start and the finish. And then they announced the result. And when they said 56-4, I was elated. And I could feel a couple rows behind me that those people back there, the OHA people and all the agency people, were not too happy.
What we heard was they were shocked. They were totally shocked.
I didn't see that shock.
Well, that's what we heard from
but
people.
But I felt it.
Yeah.
And so we quickly got up and left the place. And just, it was a very strong feeling of elation in me, sure. For instance, that, it was worth going there. We had accomplished something. It was very hard to measure what we had accomplished, but we were on the winning side.
Yep.
And from what I hear, it was very good.
Well, let me tell you something. Couple things. Number one, what you guys did is nothing less than you saved the nation. That's what you did. You saved the nation. And on behalf of all of us watching, everybody out there, I want to give you from the bottom of my heart, mahalo piha, Leon, mahalo piha ku, for going to D.C., doing what you did, speaking for the Hawaiian people, for everybody in Hawaii, and putting the truth out there to save the Hawaiian kingdom. That is fabulous.
Well, the truth is that we weren't there for ourselves.
Yeah. I know that. That's what happened. That's what you did. And that's the blow-by-blow account of how the Akaka bill went down to defeat. That's the story. Thank you very much for listening. This has been Voices of Truth, one-on-one with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Koani Foundation. I'm Ehukekahu Cardwell, and until next time, ahui ho!